It's wonderful to welcome Bishop Timothy as we're discussing some of the questions to do with the rules that the Church gives us and how we're supposed to go about following them. Bishop Tim, it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
So just to begin with, I'm conscious that for a lot of people the question of getting to Sunday Mass is really important, and of course there are sometimes circumstances where it's not possible, and it might be worth exploring what to do in those circumstances and what we might do if we found ourselves in the position where we can't get to Mass.
So sometimes people ask the question, and people have asked me in parishes, is it a serious sin to miss Mass on Sunday, and do you have to confess it? The direct answer to the direct question is yes, it is a serious sin to miss Mass on Sunday, because Sunday is the Lord's Day. It's one of the commandments to keep the Lord's Day holy. And so if we miss Mass, then we are missing something quite significant in our life of faith, one of the pillars of our faith, keeping the Lord's Day holy and honouring the Sabbath day. Now, sometimes somebody will come to confession and they will say something like, I missed Mass for 2 Sundays because I was in hospital. I think it's really important for that person to be told the fact that you were in hospital meant that you could not get to Mass. So what you're putting together are 2 things that don't go together. You miss Mass, yes. Ordinarily, that would be a serious sin. You couldn't come to Mass, so you were prevented from coming to Mass. That cannot be in the same way. It's not the same to say, I could not go or I did not go. So when people ask, have I sinned by not going to Mass? If you could go to Mass and you've made another choice, that is a sin. If you could not go, it's not a sin. So that's confession, and we also want to say to people, it's not about always feeling bad about these things. It's about saying, after confession, I'm going to turn my life around. And it's like so many things in life, prayer, Mass. If you don't do it, you don't always miss it. But if you do it, you quite likely feel, I could do more of this and I'd like to do more. So we encourage people to come to Mass as much as anything, to keep the rhythm of their life, to not think each week, shall I go, shall I not go? Just go, make it part of your week. And we say, of all the hours in the week, this is just one being offered to God. So then on the other set of rules, the fasting on Fridays, and we talk about fasting and abstaining from meat. So where do we stand with that?
Well, one of the interesting things with that question, of course, is that there are different traditions in different parts of the world at the discretion of the various bishops' conferences. So while in England and Wales, the bishops' conference here has determined that every Friday throughout the year, Catholics are asked to abstain from meat in order to recognise that it's the day on which our Lord died, and it therefore has a kind of penitential character. In many other bishops' conferences, there might be other decisions made, such as in Italy, when I was studying at the Venerable English College there, the Italian bishops' conference rule is that you abstain from meat on Fridays during Lent. And then on the other Fridays of the year, it's still a day with a penitential character, but that there's a larger degree of flexibility to determine how you mark the penitential character of that day. And I think in a very similar vein to what you were saying about when we can't get to Mass, when it comes to our Friday penance, there's a tremendous difference between intentionally saying that I really can't be bothered to do this on this particular day, and actually finding yourself in a circumstance where you've had to make a difficult choice. You've gone round to a friend's house for a meal and they didn't know that as a Catholic you don't eat meat on Fridays, and so the choice was either to make a big scene and cause offence, or to, in that instance, break the rule. And as you were describing about Mass as well, these are 2 very different things. It's the difference between not being able to get to Mass or choosing to not go to Mass. And the same, I think, is true with the Friday penance. Obviously, all of us want to try and follow the instructions that the church gives us, which are there for our good and ultimately to the praise of God. But where there are those circumstances where things don't quite go according to plan, it's not something to agonise about. It's not something to be too harsh on yourself about. Yeah.
The other thing that always amuses me, I must say, because I don't eat fish, is that when people say, right, I won't eat meat on a Friday, I'll eat fish. There's nothing penitential for most people about eating fish these days. It's quite a pleasure. And for somebody who's a vegetarian, what are they supposed to do on a Friday? So it is about the spirit of the law, isn't
Absolutely.
it? And it might be an act of pastoral charity to somebody rather than anything to do with eating. But it's marking that character. Sunday, the Lord's Day, going to Mass. Friday, the day of the crucifixion of our Lord, doing a work of penance.
And as you were speaking there, I was reminded that Fridays, of course, are penitential days ordinarily, but there are certain circumstances where they're not penitential days at all. They're solemnities. They're among the greatest feast days that we have as a church. And of course, on those occasions, the spirit of the day is to celebrate. And so Catholics are not bound on those occasions to treat it as a penitential day, to abstain from meat, or to take on any other penance as well.
Yes. Now, returning to confession, sometimes people can get quite scrupulous about, I've confessed something before, but I feel the need to confess it again. And I think in that situation, we have to remember that if God has forgiven us, even if we can't quite understand how or why he's forgiven us, we must believe that we are told that he's forgiven us. And we might just want to add the line at the end of confession, and for all the sins of my past life. It's quite a helpful catch-all, and to say that means we don't have to go over old ground.
Absolutely. I think confession is best framed really in the context of a loving relationship with a God who deeply cares for us, you know. And while there's something a little bit difficult about going into the confessional and listing the sins that you've committed, and that is quite a daunting thing, and you might have all sorts of feelings going on as you're going through that process. But the reality is, once you've finished that and you hear the words of absolution, it's all taken care of. And sometimes that's more difficult to take in. Maybe partly because it's not actually about what we've done. It's about the work that Jesus does for us. So yeah, there's almost something counterintuitive about that.
Yes.